are We Knew the Moon, and this is our guided meditation for full moon in Scorpio. I am here with Tracey. Hi, Tracey.
Hi, Dee. Hello. Bit of a meditation and a journaling release exercise today.
Oh, fantastic. We're really mixing it up with the different types of activities we're doing on these guided meditations, which I'm enjoying.
Hopefully you guys are too. I think it's not always appropriate just to do meditation around an energy that's strong like Scorpio. Sometimes you need to add a little bit to it.
Sometimes it's much more doing energy, isn't it? Really excited about this one. I'm going to start by telling you all what you need for this session. First of all, is to get into a really nice comfy place, your sacred space, your cozy place, and try to make sure you're not going to be disturbed for the next hour or so. Get a blankie on you or whatever you do to make you feel nice and cozy. And then we're going to go through all the different signs and elements and so forth associated with this full moon in Scorpio. But I'm going to tell you some of the crystals and some of the aromas now, just in case you want them for this exercise. So again, we call them aromas. We always tell you we call them aromas because you might have them as an oil. You might have them as an incense stick. You might have them as a scented candle. It might be a tea. It might be some snacks because some of them are very foodie. So however you like to consume or be around these different smells, the ones that we recommend are black pepper, coffee, that's an easy one for me to have in the vicinity. Galangal, hops, pennyroyal, tuberose, and woodruff.
Woodruff, there's a new one, isn't it?
Yeah. So those are the aromas. And then the crystals that are very good for this time are opal, selenite, quartz, and moonstone. So if you've got any of those and you want to grab them and have them to hand, we always say, though, there's no right or wrong crystals or aromas. So you just go for whatever you feel drawn to at this point in time and whatever gives you kind of comfort or feels appropriate. We'll give you a moment to just get settled, light your candles, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm going to hand over to Tracey for our little exercise for today.
Thanks, Dee. Yeah, so the theme for this full moon in Scorpio is quite intense. We're going to be doing a lot of releasing of negative emotions and reflecting on bad situations or ways that we've behaved badly. For those of you who are anything like me, if someone's upset you or you've had a bad situation, maybe an argument, maybe a conflict, sometimes it's hard to let it go. Maybe you'll replay it over and over again. Maybe you'll feel guilt for how it evolved. Maybe you will not acknowledge it and just store it away in a cupboard for it to resurface later. So we're going to do a little bit of work on how do we react, how do we process, and how do we release. Full moon is that time of reflection, and Scorpio is that sign of drama. It's a closed sign, it's a closed energy. And it's a sign of where there can be a massive build-up of emotions. So although there's not a lot going on the surface, there's a lot going on emotionally, which can then be released maybe in the wrong way. A lot of Scorpio energy gets to be released subconsciously. So we just build up like a kettle boiling or a pan that boils over. You know, it gets to that certain point and then it just explodes.
Like a pressure cooker.
A pressure cooker, that's the thing I'm looking for. You can tell my cooking skills aren't great. And that's when you're releasing your anger and your hate, your frustration on a person or a thing, but you're not necessarily doing it in the nicest way. Or for some of you as well, you may be releasing your anger not enough and you're holding it in. And it's making you become a person that you're not because you're not voicing your upset or concerns. So there's a balance of over-release and doing it wrong and exploding, or under-release and being under-communicative and just letting it fester and boil. And that, to me, sums up Scorpio. You don't want to release any of your emotions or problems or concerns with a person with regret. There's nothing wrong with being assertive or voicing your upset with someone, but you need to make sure you do it in the right way. I think honesty is always the best policy with friends, but you need to make sure that you voice it correctly at the right time and be true to your values as well. So we're going to today do a little bit of meditation, but it's more just getting us into a relaxed state. I don't want us to get into a real deep meditative trance, because we're going to go back to a time where we may have had conflict, arguments, and I don't think it's great to be in that relaxed state and take yourself to that situation. So let's just take ourselves today to a really calm, sacred space, like Dee says, where you're not going to be disturbed, where you're not going to have distraction, where you're comfortable, the room temperature's right, you're on your own. And we're just going to pause for a second to just clear our thoughts of the day and take our surroundings in. Hopefully you're in a nice comfy position, seated. Comfy pillows, a nice blanket. Let's just take this time to pause. Let's think of our day so far. And let's just release and let everything go that's happened up until this point. Taking a deep breath in through the nose and releasing out through the mouth. Deep breath in through the nose and releasing out through the mouth. And as we release our breath, let's release our day. Release what's going on in our mind at the moment. Release that to-do list. Release the thoughts so far that keep popping into your head as we try to clear our mind and just pause and be in this moment. And when you're ready, I want you to just take a moment to think about the last time that you were angry or upset. A situation where there was either conflict, confrontation, perhaps someone upset you, perhaps someone confronted you, or perhaps it was you that was doing the confronting to someone. When was the last time that you had some sort of argument or conflict or felt angry, usually towards a person? Take yourself to that moment. You know it's not nice, but replay what happened. How did it start? How did you feel? How did you respond? And how did it end? And as we replay this moment, let's also note how we felt after. Did we feel hurt? Did we feel angry? Were we able to just carry on as normal? Did it take us a few days, hours, seconds to resume back to normal? How did we respond after this upset episode? And when you're ready, open your eyes. Come back to the room. We're not going to take too long to pause for thought of this situation. Like I say, it's not a nice place to be. And perhaps you are a super balanced person who doesn't need to replay this too much. Let's take one last deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. As we just acknowledge how we feel, settle our tummies back to the moment of where we are now and the room that we're in. And know whatever happened, it's okay. When you're ready, and you may want to pause me just to take a few more moments to settle and calm. Like I say, it's not nice to replay bad scenarios and relive them. I felt it was important, though, for this journaling practice to see and reflect, as we do on a full moon, of our behaviour. Dee and I always self-doubt after argument. Sometimes it's a bad thing, sometimes it can be a good thing. It's always good to just do a little check, which is what this is, on how am I dealing with conflict in my life? How am I responding? How am I letting it go? And could I have done it differently? So we're going to do a little journaling now, based around the episode that popped in mind when you just did that quick visualization. Might be worth also just making note of, did something pop up there that you thought you'd let go and it was a long time ago that has just come back, or was it a recent episode? So have a little think about what did come back to you. My counsellor said to me, we have a habit of putting stuff in the filing cabinet and closing the drawer, but we haven't actually resolved it very well. We haven't analysed it properly. We haven't released it properly. We've just stored it away and it will pop back at another time. So maybe this is a learning curve or an episode for you where you've realised you put something in the filing cabinet, you haven't let it go properly. It's there and it will pop and resurface at maybe a trigger point later down the line. So let's use this full moon energy in Scorpio to try and learn how we can release, how we can process, how we can let go, and how we can improve our response to confrontation. Dee, do you want to talk about anything that popped up there for you? You don't have to if it's personal.
It is personal, but I don't mind sharing.
Oh, thank you.
It's going to sound like a little thing, but it was the first thing that came up when you asked me when the last time I was angry. I don't think I get angry very often. I get very sad and I get hurt and defensive and all sorts, but getting angry is a different thing that doesn't happen that often. And it was last night, gone to bed. Paul came up to bed later than me and he just started talking to me and woke me up to talk to me about, he was talking about the Wi-Fi. And so I literally turned to him and was like, sorry, did you just wake me up to ask me a question about the Wi-Fi? And, you know, we've already mentioned several times on this podcast that we are super precious about our sleep. It rarely happens that people wake me up because I'm such an early riser. And so they're surprised at how bad it is for them when they try. I was so angry because I just felt how inconsiderate he was, that he just came walking into the room and just starting a conversation without looking to see whether I was even awake, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting that you was also asleep. So he woke you up and your reaction was a subconscious reaction. So you know that your response was something that your heart gave more than your head. We talk about heart over head, don't we? And Scorpio energy is a lot about when you get that energy, when you get that conflict, it is very like, you know, people say things without thinking. Yeah.
And, you know, in his defense, he was super apologetic because he is like that, like kind of oblivious and in his own world. So he would never wake me up like that on purpose. But
well, that leads me to my first question for everyone is, how did we react to this situation? And you may be like Dee, who was waking up from her sleep and reacted subconsciously. I don't think You can blame you for reacting subconsciously when you've just been woken up. But it's interesting to see that's how you would react if you didn't have your brain thinking and saying, whoa, let's just stop and process this for a second.
That's kind of worrying because I have punched people who have tried to wake me up again, completely subconsciously.
It sounds like you're very self-aware as well, that, you know, you have got your brain in gear, taking over a little bit, that you are in control of the situation and you do take that time to pause. And I think that's a really good practice for everyone. A situation that does, maybe you're the one that is angry at someone for something they've done, or maybe someone is attacking you, because there's 2 points of conflict here. You may be the one that's provoking it, not provoking it in a way of you caused the situation, but you're definitely the one that's expressing anger. Or you may be the one that's been attacked and you feel like it's unjust or unneeded. But however you respond in either of those situations, write down now, how did you react? Are you just gunning back and giving as good as you get and fighting and saying without thinking? Or are you the person that kind of says, okay, I'm going to let you just spat out whatever it is you've got to say to me right now. You're attacking me and I'm just going to take a step back and process this and respond when I'm ready. There is a very good mindful exercise to do in any situation of anger and conflict. If you can, take that step back. Whether you're the person that's angry or the person that is being, I call it attacked, because I see it as if I don't do confrontation. So if someone does start gunning at me, I want to stand up for myself, but also I feel attacked. And then I want to defend myself. But it's good to do that mindful exercise of just taking that step back.
It's a difficult thing, isn't it? Especially when you're like mid-argument with someone else. Paul's much better at it than I am. So he'll say mid-argument, I need to go and have a moment. And I'm like, no, we got to finish this conversation. When actually the best thing is for us to like take a moment, calm down, come back together and chat.
The most important thing I've noted here with Scorpio energy is not to say things that you will regret. Release things properly and take a pause for thought. So this leads me on to my second question is, were you happy with your reaction? Did you respond great? Do you think you could have done any better? And don't go down the road of self-doubt, because the conflict arguments, you know, there's always going to be that point of I could have done it better. But let's see if we can learn from, was there something in that reaction you would have changed? Or maybe it was your reaction to something that you could have changed. Did you overreact to something? Did you misunderstand something? Did you not communicate something well? I think arguments, conflict, they're all room for soul growth. They happen for a reason. To develop your relationship either deeper with someone so you have a better understanding of them, or because that person's not meant to be in your life anymore and your conflicts, your horns have locked and you realise that actually you're no good for me. Bye-bye. So, Dee, were you happy with your reaction?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in all honesty, if I had been awake and he'd been disturbing me, I would have just asked him if he minded being a bit quieter.
So were you happy with your reaction? And then the next question is, would you change anything? And by the way, you don't have to, you can say, no, I wouldn't change anything. Have the confidence and the self-courage to say, no, I did that to the best of my abilities, given the situation that I was in. Because this exercise isn't about digging deep and trying to write something down for the sake of it. Like sometimes, no, I wouldn't change anything. And yes, I was happy with my reaction. I know it couldn't have been any other way. And what will that tell you about your conflict with people? That is maybe you're balanced and rounded and don't need to do this exercise and you're all good.
It's worth doing the exercise just to realise that you're happy with how you're handling things.
So that leads me on to my next question nicely, Dee, which is, do you still feel upset by this situation, or do you feel like you have let it go? Now, the very fact that it popped up in your relaxing moment there when I asked you to think about a bad time or an argument or conflict, for you, Dee, it was recent, so that's probably why it popped up. You just need a bit more time to release it. But have a little think about, why did that pop up? Is it a recent thing that you still need to give yourself time to release? Or is it something that you put in that filing cabinet that's just popped back up that you haven't let go properly?
If it's something that has happened with someone a long time ago and you're waiting for that kind of closure, you might have to kind of look for closure in different ways.
You have to create your own closure. And I've got some techniques here actually, which can help you.
Especially with an ex, for example, or a friend that you've fallen out with. You would love to have that conversation with that person where they admit everything they've done wrong and how you're amazing and how they've changed as a person as a result because they've seen the light. And unfortunately, for most cases, that's never going to happen, right?
Never going to happen.
And so if you're waiting for that moment in order to get closure and move on, that's not going to happen. So how can you get closure in another way? So I'm dying to hear about some alternative ways.
Well, one important thing I've learned about, and I call it feeding your monster, is to not feed the monster, the anger, the frustration, the upset, the hurt anymore. And one of the things that we do to fight our cause is as soon as you've had that conflict, you then go to your closest friend, family, partner, boyfriend, husband, wife, girlfriend, whoever, and you'll say, you'll never guess what's happened. And then you will go into it in great detail as if they need convincing that you're a nice person and it wasn't your fault. And you replay it in detail and you think, I'm just sharing this with them to tell them what happened. But actually what you're doing is you're feeding the monster. You're making it replay in your head over and over again. You're making the scenario stronger. You can probably then add more detail to it. Yeah. And you're adding to it. And it's that whispers game of, you retell the story over and over and over again. Depending on your emotional state, you can actually build it up to be 10 times worse than what it was.
You need to find a balance, I suppose, of like having a friend or two to confide in to help you process the situation and just having a rant about it to everyone.
Exactly. So that's exactly it, isn't it? You need a friend to lean on to tell you that you were right for comfort.
Or where you were wrong.
Or where you were wrong if they're a really good friend and honest. But then that should be it. So ask yourself, are you then telling everyone? Who are you sharing this story with? Or are you doing, like Dee mentioned, are you replaying the scenario in your head of what you should have, would have, could have said? Or if you see them again, what you want to say? Think about how you're replaying the scenarios or your wannabe scenarios in your head. Once you've relayed the story and got advice on it, if you need to, cut it off. Stop it. Release it.
Especially if every time you tell the story again, you're all wound up again.
Exactly.
Who's that serving? The person who you're angry with, they don't even know. So it's not affecting them, is it?
But if you're doing this, it's a very normal human reaction. It's not healthy or great to keep doing it. And it's definitely not going to help you release it. So don't worry if you do it. It's really normal. I do it a lot. I still do it a lot. It's a practice that I just can't help myself. Yeah. Michael does a thing. He holds his hand out and he says to me, pass it here. And I have to pass him an invisible thing. And he's like, there you go. You've let it go. Because bless him, and you get it as well, Dee, when I'm in a rut, when someone's upset me, I'm like the elephant that never forgets. And I replay it over and over and over and over again to the same people in my life, to the point of Michael says, if I have to hear that name one more time, like I'm going to get upset with you because you need to move on. So don't be hard on yourself. I'm not practicing what I'm preaching here at all. And if you find it really hard, and some people will find it harder than others, but be self-aware of it and understand that's the process of confrontation and anger and release. The next question is a really good one to ask yourself, especially if you don't do confrontation very well, or you self-doubt a lot, or you blame yourself a lot, is do you have a lot of conflict in your life? Does this happen a lot? And is it you raising problems with people, or are people raising problems with you? Have a little think about, if you have a one-off scenario of someone attacking you, or you, what's the word you used? The kettle pot exploding once.
Pressure cooker?
Pressure cooker. If it happens just once, then, have a think about why, of course. But if it's happening a lot, is there a repeated thing here? Is it a repeated trigger? Is it a repeated person? Or are you doing something to people? Is it one person that's exploding on you a lot? Or is it a lot of people and it's the same problem? Have a little think about where this conflict's coming from. Have a think about all of those questions, people. I hope it's giving you food for thought on how you're dealing with conflict, anger, all the stuff that we try and squirrel away and not face. Like I say, Scorpio energy is one of these ones that on the surface is very mulling and very calm, and then it will just boil over into this massive drama which isn't needed. So find that balance of releasing and letting people know how you feel, but doing it in the right way and in a thought out way. And that way you might get better results as well. I did say, Dee, I have some techniques for letting go. So the first of all is taking, which we mentioned before, that pause if you can. So going into another room, meditating or just breathing, maybe get yourself a Headspace app or something that's just going to calm you down from the emotions of the moment. Visualization is a good one as well. So if you can, with your breathing and your meditation, picture the anger, picture the emotion, picture the person or the...
It's like when you visualize running them over in your car.
No, nothing nasty.
Oh, okay.
I like to visualize it as a color. So for me, anger is the color red. And I see myself as the color red. And I try and visualize the color, a nicer color, maybe like yellow or something more calming, just replacing that color. That technique works for me really well. You might find releasing it, visualizing, holding it and releasing it somewhere is a good technique.
Visualizing, handing it over to Michael, as you said.
Journaling. So one thing to remember with your journaling is that if you're using it as a vent page to rant about or talk about, scream about all the bad things that's happened, it's a form of release and it's all your scribbles and anger. Don't then, when you're feeling calmer in a few days, read over it and re-trigger how you felt.
And just make sure it stays private. This is reminding me again of the Friends episode. Friends was so deep, wasn't it?
Which one?
The one where Rachel writes him the 28-page letter, front and back.
Oh, we were on a break. Yes. Yeah.
And it's basically this, isn't it? It's her writing everything to do with that conflict, how she wished he'd reacted, how she felt, blah, blah, blah. And probably she didn't need to share it with him. It definitely wasn't well received. It could have been possibly edited or been in a conversation. If you do write anything down, make sure it stays private. Definitely a really good sort of therapy technique to write a letter or a text, whatever, to the person. It's a really good way to help process how you're feeling or whatever. But that person, you don't actually need to send it for real.
No. Every journey is different though, isn't it? I honestly think the big question here, which I didn't ask, is do you want that person who you had conflict in your life or not? Another few ways of releasing, and these are more your witchy woo-woo ways. You know, we do a lot of release practice, especially during a full moon, to maybe write it down on paper, bury it. If you want to clear energy, you know, smudging is a great practice. If you've had an argument in a room, smudge yourself. Salt lamps are lovely. Grab some crystals, some cleansing crystals like selenite, which I think is one suggested for this moon. Maybe have a shower or a wash, open the windows. I am a big believer, Dee. I don't know about you, but if you've had conflict in a space, that space holds that energy for a while. This is why they say never have arguments in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's helped everyone. Dee's going to go through our full moon in Scorpio.
It's in our download, so please do download it if you want to have a copy of it, stick it in your journal. A little brief description of this full moon in Scorpio. It's a rather full-on high energy time. So make sure you're consciously making time for self-care. A lot of downtime, a lot of relaxing downtime. And it's a good time to bring out your sensuality. As you said, it's a very sensual sign, isn't it?
Well, it's seen that way because it's so closed, you know, dark and mysterious. And you know, the connections that a Scorpio or Scorpio energy has are deep ones. They're few and far between, and they're not the social butterfly energy. It's the close-knit group of friends energy. I've got some extra questions to ask yourself at this full moon in Scorpio. Are you surrounding yourself with meaningful relationships? Ooh.
Yeah, so Scorpios are very good at making sure that the people in their lives are meaningful to them. Like I said, they're not social butterflies. They don't have hundreds of acquaintances. They have a close-knit group of key people. Not saying that you have to cut all your acquaintances out of your life, but just have a little look around you. Who do you surround yourself with? Are they meaningful? Are they important? Or do you have meaningful relationships with people, but you're not dedicating enough time to them? You're wasting time with less meaningful people or activities, for example. Question 2, have you been putting a wet towel on your sensuality?
Oh.
Now, sensuality is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's very much about tapping into your feminine energy. We're in a full moon time. You should be asking yourself this, whether you've got a partner or not, whether you're looking or not, because the idea is that you want to make sure that your full sensual self, as sensual as you want to be and want to feel, regardless of your partners or whether you're in a relationship or not. Do you need to go and do a burlesque class with the girls? Are you with someone that doesn't allow you to be your full sensual self? Are there reasons why you yourself are putting some blocks on it? Maybe you feel self-conscious. If you do, then ask yourself why. And that leads on to question 3. Do you have a healthy relationship with sex?
Ooh.
So that's not just how often you're having it, but your attitude towards it. I'm not going to pretend to be able to tell you what healthy relationship with sex looks like.
I think a good question is, are you happy? Are you happy? And don't compare yourself to maybe things you hear on TV or you think you should be doing or what friends are doing, because everyone's sex life's different. So are you happy?
The next thing that we want to point out for you, not a surprise because we're talking about sex and sensuality, is the affected organs are the reproductive system.
Oh, I thought they'd be naughty ones, Dee.
And my favorite one, the anus.
The anus again. That's a double check-up this year, because I think that popped up for new moon in Scorpio as well.
Yeah, well, again, because of the Scorpio energy. So it's not a surprise. So if you've got any issues with your lady parts or your boy parts or your everything in between parts, now's the time to address those. I mean, if you have any issues in those areas, address them right away. Don't wait for a full moon in Scorpio. Even if you don't believe it or fully understand it, we like to think of this as our year-long full body MOT. So by the end of it, you would have done a full body scan and hopefully addressed any issues you have with any parts of your body. The aromas, we already mentioned them obviously at the beginning of this episode. Black pepper is a really nice one. I only discovered it recently as an essential oil on its own. And I love, love, love it.
What do you mix it with?
I will use it on its own, and I also like mixing it with citrus. So
nice. I've noted here that black pepper is good for alertness. So I'm guessing if you mixed it with a citrus oil, you'd be super alert and self-aware.
It symbolizes wealth and adventure. Isn't that fun?
Oh, nice.
The other one I mentioned is coffee. When I was researching this, like Googling spiritual meanings of coffee and so forth, something hilarious came up. And I'll just read it as a direct quote. Coffee is generally a euphemism for sex. Tea, brackets, being less satisfying than coffee, can mean something like a hand job or a blow job.
I wonder if it's all down to Scorpio and spiritual meanings and coffee, because you invite people in for a coffee and it means something else.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about that, but obviously coffee is very much an energy. And then gal and gal.
It's similar to ginger. Speaking of sex, boosts male fertility, I found. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
The next one is hops, which is obviously used in the process of making beer. But apparently when it's brewed as a tea, it's really good at aiding digestion.
Oh.
I wonder if it's because we're talking about conflict and so forth that, like you and I, we get stress shits, don't we?
Anxiety. Mm-hmm. Yeah, anxiety is closely linked to digestion.
I found an interesting note, though, that apparently hops, if you already struggle with depression, that hops can worsen depression. So it's a good opportunity to mention that all of these herbs and spices and aromas, especially if you're actually physically consuming it into your body, that's always a good idea to check if it doesn't if there's not a medical reason why you shouldn't be consuming it. Some of them you have to be careful if you're pregnant and obviously with medications and so forth. So please do check with your doctor if you're particularly worried about anyone. Pennyroyal was the next one that we talked about. And here, this one, it just made me laugh as well. Scorpio, so naughty, isn't it?
A naughty list of aromas.
Yeah, because pennyroyal has symbolic sexual connotations and was once commonly used as a lewd metaphor for female pubic hair and illicit sexual affairs.
I wonder if that's why people say when they go to the toilet, I'm spending a penny, because it's all linked to... Probably not.
No, I think that's because you actually have to pay a penny to go pee.
That would make more sense than this very...
I'm sorry, I have to Google what pennyroyal looks like now because I can't visualize it and I want to see if it looks like pubes.
What, like some tufty plant?
Tufty plant. Oh, no, I don't think it looks like pubes. Let me share my screen with you so you can tell me if you think this looks like pubes. I don't know whether this visual element would be very interesting on our podcast, but pennyroyal is also used as a digestive aid. So again, like with the hops. Tuberose is a sign of purity and peace and innocence, and apparently is very often used in bridal bouquets. And then woodruff, which made you laugh earlier, woodruff is associated very much with spring. So it's very much associated with Beltane, which is round about this time, 1st of May. And it's quite often used in hand fasting rituals. It's aphrodisiac and can be used for communication with wood sprites who adore this herb. How cute is that? And I found this quite interesting. It even has a Christian symbolism because it symbolizes the bed straw, Mary's bed straw. The element associated with this full moon in Scorpio is water. So very fluid, emotional, sensitive, sensual, compassionate, all very Scorpio. And
which you wouldn't think for Scorpio, right?
Scorpios get a bad rep, don't they?
Yeah. And they're actually very creative. It's very creative, free flowing. But the energy's got to be managed quite well.
Tarot. The tarot suit associated with this time is the cups. Again, very emotional, intimate, empathetic, intuitive, and romantic. Isn't that lovely? So if you're doing any readings, if you're into your cards, tarot decks, then do keep an eye out if there are any cups that come up or no cups that come up in your reading, to pay special attention to that at this time. And then your crystals, we listed them, but I'm just going to go through them again. Opal, it's a very emotional stone and reflects the mood of the wearer. Isn't that cute? It's really good for intensifying emotions and releasing inhibitions. It's a lovely stone, I think, and very pretty.
I noted as well, it's a good symbol for love and passion, which ties in the theme of this sheet. Yeah.
Selenite is another one, which we've talked about. It's the stone of the moon. So it's very good for that feminine energy. Again, very much tied with sensuality. Maybe get some selenite in the bedroom if you need to increase your sensuality. Quartz. Quartz is a great one because it's so widely available. There's loads of different types that have their more specific characteristics. But normally when we talk about quartz, we're talking about clear quartz. It's a really good one for transmission of energy and amplification of energy. It even used to, I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be used in TV for that purpose. It's a really powerful one.
The amplifier or the clarifier.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say clarity as well and healing. And then moonstone is another one that's really good for inner growth. So again, conflict is always the opportunity for inner growth, strength, perhaps to get through any difficult times, and also for new beginnings and fertility.
Oh, nice selection there, Dee.
The affirmation, which you can download, I am ever victorious.
Oh, and again, these you write them down, say them again and again. Bit of self-confidence building there, I think.
Yeah, set it as an alarm in your phone so it pops up on your screen, however you do it. Write it on a Post-it note on your computer screen. That's what I do normally. And then numerology, the number 9, which is compassionate.
This came up recently as well on another circle we did. Number 9's popping up a lot for this time of year, isn't it?
Maybe to do with spring and that energy. Independent, humanitarian, adventurous, and can be impulsive. So keep an eye out for number 9s, and for those characteristics might be the time of the moon. Yeah, so those are all the points. Take some time. Don't go straight back into real life. Take some time and, mull over those things that we raised and make notes and everything. And we will see you at the next
new moon. Happy full moon, everyone. Enjoy.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Enjoyed that and you want more from us, why don't you head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/We Knew the Moon, and check out some bonus content.
Also, if you want to stay up to date, you can follow us on our Facebook page at we.knew.the.moon. If you could leave us a review on our Facebook page, that would mean a lot.
Our Instagram handle is the same as our Facebook, at we.knew.the.moon. We are on Twitter at We Knew the Moon 1, and we are also on Pinterest. Just search for We Knew the Moon.
Finally, if you want lots more fun, moon info and all things spiritual, plus our lovely shop, please visit our website, weknewthemoon.co.uk.